Hi, I'm Lavani, and I work with the Nature Conservation Foundation's Nature Learning team. And right now, we're going to be playing a small game. I'm sure that we've learned a lot from Dr. Manjari's talk, and I certainly have learned a lot. And there's a lot of interesting things now to look at with a new perspective. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. And what we'll do is I hope everyone has their pen and paper ready. We're going to be playing a small matching game. And I'm just going to share my screen now. Okay, I hope everyone can see my screen. So we're going to be starting the matching game with a setup like this. So in the top row, we'll be seeing a different list of animal homes. In the bottom row, we'll be seeing the different list of animals. Now, in the top row, we'll have the naming of the animal homes as A, B, C, D, as you can see, and in the bottom, they'll be jumbled. Now, the aim of the game is for you to match the letters with the corresponding numbers. So we're going to have 3 rounds, and the first round is animal homes and animals that you may have seen inside your house. So let's start. And remember to write down the answers in your notebooks or on your piece of paper that you have with you. Okay, let's start. So here in the top row, you can see some interesting structures that you may or may not have seen in your house. And at the bottom row, you can see some different animals. Now your task is to match which animal made which home. So could it be, for example, 2 to A? Could it be 4 to D? I'm giving you 30 seconds to guess. So please start. Okay, 30 seconds are up. Let's see what the answers are. So here we have the matching. As you can see, the answers are 4 to A, 1 to B, 2 to C, and 3 to D. So a little bit about all these different homes and who makes them. The first thing, which is A, you may have seen this on the walls of your house or in your bathroom. It's a cocoon made by something called a caseworm moth larva. So this larva, what it does is, this little worm that you can see, it goes and collects all these little pieces of gravel and sand and makes a cocoon for itself so that it's protected. And interestingly, it makes it so that it matches the background so that it's harder for you to see. So for example, if you have a white wall, you will be seeing, you'll probably see a white caseworm cocoon. So these larvae are masters of camouflage, and they design their own cocoons according to whatever materials they find around them. The second pairing, which is B to 1, is, I'm sure that you may have seen this in your house or in your school libraries or something like that. These are tunnels made by a silverfish. A silverfish is a small insect that loves chewing on starch, which is found in paper. And what they do is they go inside your books and they make little tunnels, and that's where they live and lay their eggs. Of course, we don't like silverfish very much because they do harm our books. But as you can see, they make very beautiful patterns. So that's one thing we can learn from silverfish. The third pairing, which is C to 2, is a sheet web or a flat mesh web. You may have seen these in the corner of your houses. And in the corners of walls, you can see these small little webs made of spider silk. And that is made by somebody called the flat mesh weaver spider. These spiders are very small. You may not even be able to see them very clearly unless you look very carefully or with a hand lens. And they built these small, very fine webs. And I'm sure if you look around your house, you can see them. And the last pairing, which is D and 3, is a very interesting nest made by an animal called a potter wasp. Now, a potter wasp, what she does is, and the female builds a nest, she goes and she finds little pieces of mud in her surroundings, and she carries them, and then she makes this very interesting structure, as you can see, with a little hole on the top. If you can see the hole here, it's on the top of the nest, and there she lays her eggs, and the eggs grow and hatch inside this nursery, and then later when they're all matured and when they've grown up, they come out of the nest. Now, something very interesting about potter wasps is that they feed their babies live food. So you may see a potter wasp going towards her nest holding a caterpillar or another small insect, and she'll be feeding it to her live young. So keep an eye out, and you might catch some of these beautiful insects in your home. These are insects that can be very easily seen around our home. Okay, congratulations to everyone who participated here. I am sure that you may have gotten a lot of the answers correct, and even if you didn't, this is a wonderful opportunity to observe things that are seen around your house and maybe learn a little more, and maybe even find some different ones next time that we don't know about, and you can tell us about them. So let's go on to the next round. The next round is going to be made up of animals that you may not see in your house, but you might see in your neighborhood or in your park or maybe in your school ground. So here we go. Like the last round, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to guess, and please match your answers in your books. Here we are. Okay, time's up. I hope you all have your answers ready. So this is a very interesting set of animals, and actually you may have recognized one of them from Dr. Manjari's presentation. Let's see what the answers are. Here's our correct pairings. We have A to 3, B to 2, C to 4, and D to 1. Now, here's a very, very interesting collection of, as you guessed it, insects. They all have 6 legs, or rather 3 pairs of 2 legs each. And so this is a termite mound that's made by a termite. And we've also just learned about this in Dr. Manjari's session. So I'm not going to get into it in so much detail. B, the option B might be a very interesting thing that you've seen in your gardens. These are called galls. They're little mounds made by wasps in leaves. And the wasp makes this mound and lays her eggs in it. And again, these wasps are very, very tiny. So you'll have to look very carefully to see them. And once she lays her eggs and the wasps mature and they hatch out and fly off. So I'm sure actually even, you may see this in a lot of trees. You may see this in a lot of plants in your garden, maybe in your local park. And now you know what it is. So isn't that really cool? Option 3 is you may have seen this especially in mango trees. If some of you have interacted with mango trees a lot, this is a weaver ant nest. And as you can see here, what the ants have done is all together, thousands and thousands of them have pulled these leaves together and woven thin strands of silk, similar to what a spider does, and joined them together so that they form one big structure. And they all go and they live inside this. So essentially it's a tent that they make. And this is what a weaver ant looks like. It's she's a red colored young lady here, and you may see them even around your houses sometimes, but these nests are very commonly found, at least I've seen them a lot in mango trees. So that may be somewhere that you've noticed it. Maybe you've noticed it and not thought about it or not realized what it is. The last one, D, is an antlion trap. Now, antlions are very interesting insects. This is the larva of an antlion, and which means it's not fully grown, but it is a very, very hungry insect, and it really needs to eat all the time. So what an antlion larva does is it makes a little hole in the ground here, and this hole is cone-shaped. Now, if you were standing on this edge of the hole and you slipped, you would probably fall inside, right? And that's the antlion larva's plan. This is what it plans for all the ants that come around. So what happens is ants come near this burrow and they're very interested in it. And they try and look over the edge, maybe they try and see what's happening, and they slip inside. And they slip to the bottom. Right at the bottom, the antlion is waiting there to eat them. So this is how the antlion larva traps its prey. Yeah. Okay. Again, well done, everyone. No matter how many you got correct, at least you know some more interesting things now that you can notice next time you go out. Time for the last round. Same as the last, we'll be doing 30 seconds. And please write down the answers in your notebooks. Okay, here we go. These are going to be animals that you may see a little far from your house. You may not see them in the cities. You may not see them commonly, but maybe if you've gone on a holiday somewhere, or you live in a place where these animals are found, you will be able to spot them. So I'm going to change the slide now. We have 30 seconds. Here we go. Okay, and we are done. I hope you have your answers ready. Let's see what the solved version of this looks like. Okay, so the pairings are A to 3, B to 4, C to 1, and D to 2. So these are a very, very interesting set of animals. As you can see here, we have insects, we have arthropods, we have a bee eater, and we have an arachnid. So we have a lot of variety going on here. Pairing A is a fig. You may have seen these in trees around your city as well. And these are actually home to a very interesting insect called the fig wasp. A fig wasp, what she does is, she goes and lays her eggs inside this fig. So as you can see, at the back of her body, there's a long, thin, almost like a pipe, which is called an ovipositor. It's an organ that she uses to lay her eggs. So what she does is she pierces the fig and then she lays her eggs inside the fig. And doing so, she also pollinates the fig. And this also, of course, leads to flowering. And after the eggs hatch inside the fig, they also release themselves. They chew their way outside the fig and fly off. So actually, all our figs are pollinated by these little insects called fig wasps. And it's a very interesting system, because not only does the fig play a role as a nursery for the young wasp when they're growing up, it's also pollinated by the fig wasp. So this is a symbiotic relationship. They're both benefiting from each other. The second one, B, is a sand bubbler crab nest, crab hole. So if you can see right here in the center, there's a tiny little hole where the sand bubbler crab lives. And actually, what the crab eats is little particles that are found in the sand. So what the crab does is, it takes a ball of sand, like a laddu, and it eats around it, and then it tosses it over its shoulder. And that's how these patterns are formed. So you can often see this when the tide goes, when the tide is low, and the water is not washing up on a beach. These are found on beaches. And the crabs will suddenly come out of their holes, and all of them will start eating, because they only have very little time to now finish their meal before the tide comes in again, and before they have to go into their holes and stay there so that they can stay safe. The third one, C, is a green bee eater nest. You can see these birds, they often they mate for life. So two of them live together in one hole, and that's where they lay their eggs. And they dig these holes in sides of cliffs where there's a vertical surface and there's mud. They dig this hole and then they go and lay their eggs in it. And bee eaters, the larger family of birds, often do this in a big group. So you'll maybe see like 20 to 30, maybe even more bee eater nests in one place. So next time you see holes on a cliffside, you have an idea of what to look for. The last one is D, and this is a funnel web. This is made by someone called the funnel web spiders. We have many, many species of these in India. And what a funnel web spider does is it finds a little hole, and then it lines it with its silk so that there's a deep hole, and the spider will wait inside that hole very, very quietly until an insect comes along and is curious, what's inside this hole? Let me go check. And as soon as the insect goes inside the hole, the spider jumps out, catches it, and goes back in. So you may see these around when you go on trips to the countryside, or maybe if you're going for long walks to places where there's not a lot of buildings. You may see these in the ground. You may see them again on little cliff sides. So keep an eye out for the funnel web spider next time. Okay, so here we have our quiz. We've had 3 really, I'm really enjoying the participation in the chat. I'm so happy that you found this interesting, and I hope you all learned something and are now, maybe you can notice, a few more things when you see them around. I'm going to take a short little time to introduce you to a creative activity after this, which is something that we can all do in our homes. Have you heard of an insect hotel? This is what we're going to learn how to make today. And since we've learned so much about animal homes, let's learn how to make an animal home ourselves. So as we learned from Dr. Manjari's session, animals need very specific habitats to make their homes. Maybe they need a lot of trees, they need a lot of shelter, they need specific spaces. But in our cities, we don't often have this much space. Maybe because we've built so many buildings, or maybe because there are so many human-made structures, insects often don't find places to make homes. So what we're going to try and do with this insect hotel is give a home for traveling insects and give them a space to live. So basically an insect hotel is just a space for insects to live in urban spaces. And particularly, actually, what's very, very interesting is that it can be made using a variety of materials. You can use pretty much any natural or semi-natural material. So here, as you can see, there's terracotta, there's wood, there's some little straw pipes which are made of hay. And you have a variety of materials, a variety of sizes of holes also for these insects to come and live in. It can be made in a variety of shapes, sizes, and designs. So very interestingly, you can also add this in your garden, and it'll be a very beautiful addition to your garden or to your balcony. And you can also have a space for an insect to rest over there. Always having flowers and foliage nearby is a big help. And the most important part of an insect hotel actually is that not only are we giving shelter to insects who probably have not been able to find spaces to live. A very good example of this is solitary bees. There are a lot of bees who live on their own. As we saw from Dr. Manjari's presentation, there are bees that live in hives, and they build these hexagonal hives where they all stay. But there are also types of bees which live on their own, which live individually, and they often don't find places to stay. And those are very, very important pollinators. So if we want to see more green cover in our cities, if we want to see more plants, more flowers, it's very important to give spaces for these insects like solitary bees. So having flowers near your insect hotel is very helpful because it attracts them. And also, in turn, these flowers will get pollinated. So we can build very simple structures like this, which are it's just a piece of wood with a few holes drilled into it. Or we can even use materials like a can from our home. So this is called upcycling, where we use a waste material from our home and we make it into something else. So we can very easily use a can. We can also use old mugs. And as you can see, there are bamboo tubes inside this mug. And this is a very simple way of making an insect hotel. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Or a very simple thing, again, is just using paper, card paper, and a plastic bottle that we can find in our homes. So an important thing here is that even though we're trying to encourage insects to come into urban spaces, because we know that it's important that these green spaces are pollinated and that we have a healthy insect population in our city, we should also be careful not to interfere with them too much. And even if we're, for example, building an insect hotel, it should be in a space where the insect feels safe And we also feel like the insect is not going to maybe attack us or something like that, because unless they are threatened, unless there is some kind of fear that they are feeling, they will not harm us in any way. So even if we, for example, we've made a successful insect hotel and there's a solitary bee who's moved in and who's living there now, if you're going to take pictures of it, please keep a safe distance, and also keep the insect hotel for like a decent distance away from, let's say, where children can reach it, or where it can be moved around. Because of course, if you had a house and someone was shaking it all the time, it wouldn't be a very pleasant experience. So I'm going to quickly show you how you can make an insect hotel to encourage these insects to come to your houses, to your balconies, and to your gardens. So it's very simple. All you need is, I hope you can see my screen. Yeah, all you need is an old plastic bottle, strong paper or old paper straws. So even though paper is not necessarily a natural material, it's derived from a natural material and it's familiar enough for insects to be comfortable with. We can also use twigs or straw, so small thin pieces of wood. And if we need some rope, we can use it, and a scissor. This is all you need. And what's really great is that we can find all this stuff around our house, or if we ask around, maybe we can borrow it from our neighbors or something. And especially during lockdown, we don't have to go out and buy anything, because most of this stuff is something that you may have found in your house, and it would be something that's already been used once, and now you can reuse it. So it's a very simple process. Keep in mind that the insect hotel should be waterproof, which is why we're using a plastic bottle for the outside layer, so that rain or water doesn't get into it. It should be in a safe and stable place so that it doesn't move around a lot, and so that the insect feels safe and can permanently move in and feel comfortable. Flowers and hydration are very important. If we have flowers in our garden, that's really great. We can also plant some, maybe get a potted plant. And insects are particularly attracted to yellow and red flowers. And if we leave a little bit of water, both birds and insects can enjoy that. And of course, in the insect hotel itself, we can try and have small cavities, because they prefer to live in smaller holes rather than big ones. So the process is very simple. Just cut off the top part, the top that we drink out of, cut off the top part with your scissors. You can roll this paper into thin tubes and make sure the length is a little shorter than the bottle. And you can do the same thing with the straw, but just cut the straw so that it's a little shorter than the bottle. And you can stuff the bottle with these tubes and keep the twigs in the gaps in the middle. And that will also be a natural material so that insects feel a little more comfortable around it. And then the last step is just to place the insect hotel in a safe, waterproof place where it won't move around. And this is where the string comes in. You can use the string to tie it down. And then all you have to do is wait for your guests to arrive. And you have a beautiful place for them to stay, a safe place, a waterproof place, and they will come and pollinate your gardens. They will come and, visit you. Maybe you can learn a little more about these insects. And, I know a lot of people are afraid of insects, but this is a lovely way to learn a little more and become friends with them.